live, we now know, on West Hartford Community Television or on West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 5 and Frontier TV Channel 6098, or at www.whctv.org. The meeting is also being recorded for on-demand viewing, which will be available on the town website. Because of the virtual format of this hearing, there are some special rules and procedures that I need to cover before I begin. First, I ask all participants to please mute the microphones on your devices when you are not speaking. Second, pursuant to Executive Order 7B, all speakers must state their name and title each time they speak. Also, I will ask members of the board and the applicant not to address other participants directly. Board and requests for information must be made through the chair. After you state your name, simply preface your question or comment with "through the chair," and when you are done, I will recognize the person who is most appropriate to respond. Although these practices may feel rigid and awkward, they will ensure the meeting is conducted in an orderly fashion and that members of the public who are listening can understand the discussion. With that, will the zoning enforcement officer please read the legal notice?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Petition number 10-2085 High Farms Road, petition of R. Pimsler requesting a variance to section 177-20E, obstructions in yards, requesting a plus or minus 9-foot 6-inch variance to the 35-foot rear yard setback for the construction of a second floor addition above a sunroom that currently projects approximately 9 feet 6 inches into the rear yard setback and is considered to be a legal non-conforming structure in the R13 zone. Virtual meeting viewing instructions. The public hearing will be conducted exclusively as virtual meetings in accordance with Executive Orders number 7B and 7I issued by Governor Ned Lamont. The public hearings will be broadcast live on television on West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 5 and Frontier TV Channel 6098 and streamed live at www.whctv.org. Audio comments. Any interested persons may participate in real time by calling 1-408-418-9388 and using the following access code 173-823-5017 at 7 p.m. Participants using caller ID blocking will not be permitted to participate. Participants will be called on in the order in which their call was received. When prompted by the chair and/or moderator, participants will have the permission to speak on matters germane to the hearing. Written comment. Any interested persons may submit a written comment via email to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov. Written comments will be made part of the record at the September 24th, 2020 public hearing and posted on the town's website. In order to be included as part of the record, comments must meet the following requirements. Comments must be received no later than 3:30 p.m. on September 24th, 2020. Or if you are listening and you have comments now, feel free to email them in. The subject of the email shall be application number and address, ZBA September 24th public hearing. And the body of the email must begin with the interested person's full name and street address, and comments must be germane to the application and no longer than 500 words. And that concludes the legal notice for the first application we'll hear tonight.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pudlick. As promised, because of the virtual meeting format, there are some special rules and procedures regarding hearings that I will need to cover before we begin. First, phone access is intended only for members of the public who wish to actively participate and provide comments on this noticed application. Excuse me, which is notice number 10-20. If you are interested in speaking on this item, please call 1-408-418-9388 and enter access code 173-823-5017. If you are on the phone and do not plan to speak, please hang up and watch live on television on West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 5, Frontier TV Channel 6098, or streaming at www.whctv.org. Again, if you do not plan to comment on this application, please hang up your phone now and instead listen to the hearing on the TV or internet. For members of the public who are still on the phone, please do not mute your device. The meeting moderator will keep everyone's line muted until it is your turn to speak. If you mute your own line, the moderator may not hear your voice when he or she calls for comment. Second, I would like to describe how the hand-raising process will work. Unfortunately, our conference technology does not allow us to identify individual callers by name. So when the public comment portion of the meeting begins, the moderator will randomly unmute one call-in line and ask everyone to say their name at the same time. The voice that we hear will belong to the person whose line is unmuted. That person will then be recognized by the moderator and asked to restate their name and provide their street address. We will repeat this process until we have unmuted every phone line. It is very important that you say your name each time you are prompted by the moderator. If the moderator unmutes a phone line and does not hear a voice, after the prompt, that phone line will be removed from the conference. If you've called in and you're also streaming the meeting on YouTube or watching on TV, please silence your other device when you speak. Otherwise, there'll be an echo because there's a slight delay in the TV and streaming broadcasts. Third, I ask that all speakers keep their comments brief and germane to the application. Obscene, offensive, or threatening language will not be tolerated, and anyone who violates this rule will receive a warning. And if the conduct continues, I'll ask the moderator to mute that person's phone line for the remainder of the meeting. If the violation is egregious, that person will be muted immediately. Fourth, the public was provided an opportunity to submit written comments on the application via email and mail. These comments have been published on the town's website as a PDF and are embedded in the online agenda. For the record, the zoning enforcement officer will now read the names of all those who submitted written comments.
There are no written comments for this application.
Thank you. Members of the public are welcome, as Brian said earlier, to continue sending comments to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.org. And those comments will be distributed to members of the board and also read into the record. Finally, I'd like to outline for all attendees the rules of engagement and how the board operates the public hearing. Those presenting or commenting should state their names and address for the record. Please spell your name. Board members may ask questions during the testimony of an applicant. All questions and comments will be directed through the chair and only after recognition by the chair, including follow-ups. If feasible, the chair will have the members hold their questions until the end of the applicant's presentation or the end of a logical break in the applicant's presentation. Following the testimony of the applicant, the public will have a chance to comment about the current application in the following order in the manner previously described. First, upon the conclusion of the public's comments, the applicant will have an opportunity to address the opinions expressed. Upon conclusion of the applicant's rebuttal, and if there are no further questions or comments from the board, the public hearing will be closed. It is the practice of the board to render a decision on an application the same night, following all items on the public meeting agenda. I'd like to conclude by thanking everyone in advance for your patience. This is only our third virtual public hearing, and we're still learning from the experience. There are bound to be hiccups and some bumps and glitches along the way, but we remain committed to the principles of open and transparent government. With that, will the first applicant, number 10-20, please proceed with their application.
Good evening, I'm Randy Pimsler. Last name is spelled P like Peter, I, M like Mary, S like Sam, L like Larry, E like Edward, R like Ralph. Our office is located at 455 Glen Iris Drive, Northeast, Suite C, in Atlanta, Georgia. This evening, I'm representing the owners of the property, Jonathan Murphy and Emily Kaiser. We would like to build a second floor addition over an existing non-conforming sunroom on the south property line. We encroach on that existing property, the building setback line by approximately 9.5 feet. That is our encroachment and nonconformity. We have presented our application to adjacent property owners in the immediate area and have gained unanimous support from those adjacent property owners. And we would appreciate your support this evening for this application, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
So actually, I have a question for Mr. Pudlick. Brian, my understanding is that once you have a variance, so they have the 9 feet already in place, that variance is existing non-conforming. My understanding, obviously not correct, but I thought this was the case, was that you could build up as long as you don't increase the footprint.
In this particular instance, there was never a variance granted for that portion of the structure that's currently non-conforming, so it encroaches past the setback. It's entirely possible that when the building was built, the structure was built, we have in the past had some different zoning regs that had different zoning setback standards. So it's entirely possible that this may have been conforming at that time, but is now essentially grandfathered in as a non-conforming structure. And so the proposal here is to vertically expand that non-conforming structure that never had a variance in the first place. And so essentially just cleaning up the record.
Okay, so just to clarify and to press this point, right? So if I have let's say that this building was within the boundaries, was within the setback, and it was only 1 story, the applicant would not need a variance to increase the 1-story conforming building to a 2-story conforming building.
That's correct.
So if it is existing non-conforming, and I guess I'm just repeating the same question I asked before, but if this is already grandfathered in at 1 story, wouldn't it be equally grandfathered in at 2 stories?
Our policy is when you expand an existing nonconformity that you've got to come in for a variance.
Okay. Okay. You're expanding an existing non-conforming vertically.
Yes.
I guess that's my hang up. If we were expanding it, as a further encroachment, okay, but there's still a requirement to get approval for a vertical expansion.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's helpful. Mr. Pimsler, I guess I have a question for you, which is what is the purpose of the, as you know, under our existing zoning ordinance, we're required to find a hardship that justifies the granting of the variance for the application. And just as kind of an outset, just at the outset, an initial question, what is the purpose of the addition? Just to increase living space?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Doyle. Again, Randy Pimsler. There is an existing balcony, if you will, a flat roof over the existing sunroom. The home is currently being insulated, re-sided, new windows are being installed with permits, and the young couple would like to expand the master bedroom over this area and eliminate that flat roof, which is not necessarily a hardship, but in the climate and given the weather conditions and whatnot, the flat roof is not a desirable condition. In addition to the desire to get rid of the flat roof condition, this is a very logical place to expand the master bedroom. They have a young family and they're a growing family. They've just purchased a home and are moving into it. And the additional storage space, closet area, and master bath would be contained in this additional area above the sunroom.
Mr. Chairman, this is Olinda Morales. May I have a question of the architect, please?
Yes, thank you, Olinda. Go ahead.
When you build the second floor story on the flat roof, do you have to also rebuild the first floor? The
Yes.
one that is now non-conforming?
Randy Pimsler again. We will not rebuild it in its entirety. The new windows will be installed. The existing siding will be removed. New insulation and siding will be added, and the floor framing for the existing deck will be reinforced. The existing walls will remain in place in their entirety. Second floor studs will be added with new windows and new roof framing will be provided. To answer your question directly, the existing walls will remain in place. And it's a slab on grade, concrete slab on grade, which will also remain in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions for our applicant? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to speak in favor of this application?
Mr. Chairman, I do see that we have a Callin user.
Thank you. Okay. Caller, would you please state your name?
Hello, caller user 2. You are now unmuted. Please state your name and address for the record.
Is there a call-in user that would like to speak in connection with this application?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Pimsler.
Thank you, Randy Pimsler. I'm going to assume that call-in user number 2 is Jonathan Murphy. He notified me that he's in Goshen, Connecticut right now. The internet is down, and I believe that he chose to dial in to participate in this meeting this evening. I'm not sure if he's able to speak at this time, but I'm going to assume that that is the unidentified call-in user at this time. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
We want to, Mr. Moderator, should we give it one more shot to try and get the call-in user online here?
They are still unmuted, so I have not muted them since. We have not heard any audio.
Hi, this is Jonathan Murphy. If we are looking at the 240-447-7786 number, that is indeed the number that Randy is referencing. I'm the homeowner, and I'm just here listening, and thank you for your consideration of our application, and appreciate all the questions. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Murphy. Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging your dialing in. Is there anything you'd like to say in addition to what Mr. Pimsler has already expressed in the application, in his presentation?
I think other than the fact that we feel very comfortable with, the welcoming that we've received from the neighborhood. We've tried to work with everybody in the neighborhood to make sure that there's a clear understanding of what we plan to do with the house, and just really, appreciate the questions. We want to make sure that as we continue to move forward, we're moving forward with the guidance that the board sets forth. So thank you for the consideration. I don't have anything other than the fact that we're really excited to move into the house. It's a dream house of ours. So just really excited to move in, and look forward to hoping to build on this variance and, continue to grow our family. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak either in favor or against the application for 85 High Farms?
Mr. Chairman, I see no other call-in users.
All right, thank you. Okay, so that will close the public hearing portion of this application. Mr. Pimsler, thank you for your contributions. Mr. Murphy, thank you. You have the choice of either staying online to listen to our deliberations later or watching them on one of the alternative media that we suggest, or we will send a notice to you in the mail of of the committee's decision. Thank you. Mr. Pudlick, could you please introduce the next application?
I certainly can, Mr. Chairman. This will be petition number 11-20, 138 Shield Street, petition of ARTfx Signs, requesting a variance to section 177-33G2, A1D, signs, which allows a maximum sign area of 100 square feet for a double-faced freestanding sign, and a maximum of one sign per lot, one freestanding sign per lot. Requesting a variance for the installation of an additional one double-sided freestanding sign totaling 63 square feet per plans on file, and this is in the IG and BG zones. And I'm just going to run through the same instructions that I read earlier. So the virtual meeting viewing instructions, the public hearings will be conducted exclusively as virtual meetings in accordance with Executive Orders number 7B and 7I issued by Governor Ned Lamont. The public hearings will be broadcast live on television on West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 5 and Frontier TV Channel 6098, and streamed live at www.whctv.org. Audio comments. Any interested persons may participate in real time by calling 1-408-418-9388 and using the following access code: 173-823-5017 at 7 p.m. Participants using caller ID blocking will not be permitted to participate. Participants will be called on in the order in which their call was received. When prompted by the chair and/or moderator, participants will have the permission to speak on matters germane to the hearing. Written comment. Any interested persons may submit a written comment via email to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov, and written comments will be made part of the record at the September 24th, 2020 public hearing and posted on the town's website. In order to be included as part of the record, comments must meet the following requirements. Comments must be received no later than 3:30 p.m. on September 24th, 2020, or right now. If you choose to write in, we will get it now. The subject of the email shall be application number and address, ZBA, September 24th public hearing. The body of the email must begin with the interested person's full name and street address, and comments must be germane to the application and no longer than 500 words. Mr. Chairman, that is the legal notice for the second application item.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So as promised, because of the virtual meeting format, there are some special rules and procedures regarding hearings that I need to cover once again before we begin. First, phone access is intended only for members of the public wishing to actively participate and provide comments for the current application, which is application 11-20 for 138 Shield Street. If you are interested in speaking on this item, please call 1-408-418-9388 and enter access code 173-823-5017. If you are on the phone and do not plan to speak for this particular application, please hang up and watch live on television on West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 5, Frontier TV Channel 6098, or streaming at www.whctv.org. Again, if you do not plan to comment on application number 11-20, please hang up your phone now and instead listen to the hearing on the TV or internet. For members of the public who are still on the phone, please do not mute your device. The meeting moderator will keep everyone's line muted until it is your turn to speak. If you mute your own line, the moderator may not hear your voice when he calls for comment. Second, I'd like to describe how our hand-raising process will work. Because our conference technology does not allow us to identify individual callers by name, when the public comment portion of the meeting begins, the moderator will randomly unmute a single call-in line and ask everyone to say their name at the same time. The voice that we hear will belong to the person whose line is unmuted. That person will then be asked to restate their name and provide their street address. We'll repeat this process until we have unmuted every phone line. It is important that you say your name each time prompted by the moderator. If the moderator unmutes a phone line and does not hear a voice after the prompt, that phone line will be removed from the conference. If you have called in and are also streaming the meeting on YouTube or watching on TV, please silence your other device when you speak. Otherwise, there will be an echo because of the delay in the TV and streaming broadcast. Third, I ask that speakers please keep their comments succinct and germane to the application. Obscene, offensive, or threatening language will not be tolerated, and anyone who violates this rule will receive a warning. If the conduct continues, I'll ask the moderator to mute that person's phone line for the remainder of the meeting. If the violation is egregious, that person will be muted immediately. Fourth, the public was provided opportunity to submit written comments on the application via email and mail. These comments have been published on the town's website as a .pdf file and are embedded in the online agenda. For the record, the zoning enforcement officer will now read the names of all those who submitted written comments. Mr. Pudlick?
There have been no submitted comments for this application.
Okay, thank you. Members of the public are welcome to continue sending comments to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov, and those comments will be distributed to the members of the board and also read into the record. Finally, I'd like to outline for all attendees the rules of engagement and how the board will operate the public portion of the hearing. Those presenting or commenting should state their name and address for the record. Please spell your name. Board members may ask questions during the testimony of the applicant, and all questions and comments will be directed through the chair and only after recognition by the chair, including follow-up questions. If feasible, the chair will have members hold their questions until the end of the applicant's presentation or the end of a logical break in the applicant's presentation. Following the testimony of the applicant, the public will have a chance to comment about the current application in the following order in the manner previously described. Upon conclusion of the public's comments, the applicant will have an opportunity to address opinions expressed, and upon conclusion of the applicant's rebuttal, and if there are no further questions from the board, the public hearing will be closed. It's the practice of the board to render a decision on an application the same night, following all meetings on the public agenda. I'd like to conclude again by thanking everyone in advance for your patience. This is only our third virtual public hearing, and we're still learning from the experience. We remain open and committed to the principles of open and transparent government. And with that, will the applicant please proceed with their presentation for 138 Shield Street?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Linda Loriano. I am the Permit Supervisor at ARTfx Signs, Linda, L-Y-N-D-A. Last name Loriano, L-A-U-R-E-A-N-O. ARTfx Sign located at 27 Britton Drive in Bloomfield, Connecticut, 06002. And tonight's application is for property located at 138 Shield Street, also known as Shield Street Plaza. The variance request is to allow a second freestanding sign on Shield Street with a sign of a total area of 63 square feet. That's 31.5 square feet per face for a double face freestanding sign. In a lot with an existing freestanding sign on New Britain Avenue. The zone is, as Brian stated earlier, in the BG and IG zoning districts. May I share a presentation with you, Commissioners?
Yes.
Mr. Moderator, is there a way for the applicant to share a presentation?
Yes, one moment. I will switch her presenter rights.
Thank you.
You should be able to share screen now.
Okay. Oh, that's not what I want to read. One moment. Okay, is everyone able to see the first page, variance requests, Town of West Hartford Zoning Board of Appeals?
I am seeing a black screen, unfortunately.
Oh no. How about now? Your sharing start. Let's see.
It's interesting. I see a cursor moving around, but I don't see the presentation.
not sure what's going on then.
So the commissioners have all been given the copy of the PowerPoint. If perhaps they can just follow along as you present.
Let's see here. Oh, that's not it. Share content. Just shared it. Okay, I guess it's not gonna. I see it on my screen. I do apologize. It's why I'm not sure why it's not showing up. Okay, do you all have a copy of it? I did send it today. Might have been a little later in the afternoon, so you might have not gotten a copy. I'll go through it. In the presentation, it points out the legal standard, zoning regulations. Let's go back to the window. Zoning regulations, the legal standards, it's regarding zoning section 177-33G 2A1D, where there may not be more than one freestanding sign on a property. And so that is the legal standard that this variance applies to. I also shared a copy of the sign affidavit certifying that the sign for public hearing has been posted on the property, on the premises, for a continuously for 7 days prior to the public hearing. The background information on this property, this is a retail commercial land use property that contains 10.65 acres of land with 2 building structures on it. One structure is a fast food style building having a precast panel exterior wall and a shopping center style building having concrete block exterior walls. The buildings were built in about 1981, and that is per Town of Assessor's property card. Other conditions of other properties in the immediate area are in fairly good condition. There is a mixture of garage repairs type style of buildings around New Britain Avenue, immediately abutting the property, and also shopping center style building in the surrounding area. The proposed project is a freestanding sign on Shield Street. And otherwise, the freestanding sign meets the height and square footage requirement of the regulations, beside the fact that a second freestanding sign is not permitted. I did share views from New Britain Avenue, which you wouldn't be able to see. And it's probably going to be really hard for you to see it. So basically, this is traveling west on New Britain Avenue. I wanted you to see an image where the frontage on New Britain Avenue is about 75 feet. It is very narrow. Currently, there is a tree that's completely blocking the view of the freestanding sign looking westbound. Traveling east, you are able to see the sign a little bit more. I can't really see it, but it's right there. And that is the street frontage on New Britain Avenue. Now, the Shield Street view, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if it helps the applicant, I think some of us do have the PowerPoint presentation. So to the extent, I appreciate your efforts to hold it up, but if you could also just maybe reference what page of the presentation you're on, that might help as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Neville. And I think that's right. I, for one, have the presentation. Mr. D'Amato, I see you shaking your head. Mr. Harris, do you have the presentation? And Mr. Johnson, Commissioner Johnson, do you have the? So we all have the presentation, Linda, so we should be good. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing for the planning staff. Okay, so I unfortunately didn't list pages on the presentation, but I am on the slide where the title is Shield Street View. And so traveling south on Shield Street, you see on the right-hand side That's Shield Street Plaza. You're going to see 2 trees. That is right in the middle is where the sign is being proposed. Another image is traveling north, where Shield Street is on the left-hand side. Zoning districts, I just wanted you to see an image. That's the next slide. BG and IG zone is mainly the zoning districts in the area. The next slide is existing sign on New Britain Avenue. That sign is 50 square feet per side for a total of 100 square feet. I believe that the height of the sign is 25 feet, which is the maximum size allowed for a freestanding sign in the IG and BG district. The next slide shows the proposed freestanding sign on Shield Street. And so for a total of 31.5 square feet per side, it is a double face sided monument sign. The next slide shows the sign location on the right. It's a plot plan. The blue line is the property line that separates Shield Street Plaza from the sidewalk area. And that little red rectangle is where the sign is proposed to be installed if granted the variance. On the right-hand side, there is a red line. That is where it is being proposed, more of an image. I just want to state that from the property line to the end of the curb where the parking lot begins, it's 20 feet for the distance between the sidewalk and the parking lot. The sign itself is, I believe, was it 5 feet wide or 4 feet? Is 4 feet 6 inches wide. I did want to point that out. It's really hard to get a picture of that sign there. And lastly, the legal hardship statement. For the record, this retail commercial property contains 10.65 acres of land with 2 building style structures. The lot frontage on Shield Street is approximately 705 feet. The lot frontage on New Britain Avenue is 75 feet. Given the unique layout of this plaza, with much of its New Britain Avenue frontage obscured by other properties, we believe that the granting of the variance will make possible the reasonable use of the property with a second freestanding sign on Shield Street Plaza, given also that the height is not going to be the maximum height of 25 feet. It'll be 7 feet tall. And we'll have a concrete footing on that location.
So a question is that sign, do those plans show illumination of the sign? Is the sign illuminated?
Okay, it will be internally illuminated.
Internally
Yes.
illuminated, okay.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, is that Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. In the legal hardship statement at the end, would you also say it's fair to characterize part of the hardship is that it's a single lane of traffic and it's hard to see a smaller sign coming through, creating some traffic problems around that area?
Are we talking about the New Britain Avenue? I'm sorry.
On like Shield Street?
Well, it is a very long stretch of, I want to say, frontage, and it does have about 3 curb cuts, I believe, and for identification purpose of, listing having the, I want to say, businesses that's set back so much from that property line. We believe that an identification, more of a directional, I'm not a directional, I'm so sorry. This freestanding sign identifying the business would actually, make it more visible in that area.
Yeah, so Ms. Loriano, I think the question Commissioner Johnson is getting to is, it seems like there's a valid argument to be made here, and maybe this could enhance your hardship statement to say it's actually a safety consideration when there are when there's no proper signage. If you've got one lane of traffic, somebody suddenly sees one of the curb cuts coming up, they got to slam on the brakes, turn in, and could that maybe one of the things we can think about is whether that creates a safety hazard.
That is
having the sign.
That is more of you put it more into context, but yes, that is one of the reasons why the Donahue brothers wanted a freestanding sign on that side.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Neville, did you have Commissioner Neville, do you have a comment? I'm sorry, Ms. Loriano, was that the end of your presentation, or did you have
that's pretty much the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Okay. Mr. Moderator, is there anyone on the line who we think may be wishing to speak in favor or in opposition to this application?
Mr. Chair, I see no one Callin users.
Okay. So if there are no further questions for the applicant, seeing none, having no call-in users, this concludes the public portion of this application. Ms. Loriano, thank you for the presentation. And you're welcome to stay until the end of this meeting to hear our deliberations, or you can be notified, your applicant can be notified by mail. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Public, would you please read the legal notice for the third and final application of the evening?
I certainly can, Mr. Chairman. This will be petition number 12-20, number 12 Shepherd Road, petition of M. Martone, requesting to renew a special exception approval in order to maintain a customary home occupation for a home tailoring business as Maria the Dressmaker, as an accessory use to the residence per section 177-49 for a period of 3 years per plans on file, and this is in the R10 zone. And just going to run through the instructions here. So this is these will be the virtual meeting viewing instructions. The public hearings will be conducted exclusively as virtual meetings in accordance with Executive Orders number 7B and 7I issued by Governor Ned Lamont. The public hearings will be broadcast live on television on West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 5 and Frontier TV Channel 6098. And streamed live at www.whctv.org. Audio comment. Any interested persons may participate in real time by calling 1-408-418-9388 and using the following access code 173-823-5017 at 7 p.m. Participants using caller ID blocking will not be permitted to participate. Participants will be called on in the order in which their call was received. When prompted by the chair and/or moderator, participants will have permission to speak on matters germane to the hearing. Written comment. Any interested persons may submit a written comment via email to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov. Written comments will be made part of the record at the September 24th, 2020 public hearing and posted on the town's website. In order to be included as part of the record, comments must meet the following requirements. Comments must be received no later than 3:30 p.m. on September 24th, 2020, or right this minute if you can get them in. The subject of the email shall be application number and address, ZBA, September 24th public hearing. The body of the email must begin with the interested person's full name and street address, and comments must be germane to the application and no longer than 500 words. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the legal notice for the third and final application on our agenda tonight.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Public. And given that this is our third application, my apologies in advance for what may seem redundant and repetitive, but I'm going to go over one more time the guidelines for the virtual meeting. As promised, because of the virtual meeting format, there are some special rules and procedures regarding hearings that I need to cover before we begin this final application. First is that phone access is intended only for members of the public wishing to actively participate and provide comments on this particular application, which is 12-20. If you are interested in speaking on this item, please call 1-408-418-9388 and enter access code 173-823-5017. If you are on the phone and do not plan to speak, please hang up and watch live on television on West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 5, Frontier TV Channel 6098, or streaming at www.whctv.org. Again, if you do not plan to comment, please hang up your phone now and instead listen to the hearing on the TV or internet. For members of the public who are still on the phone, please do not mute your device. The meeting moderator will keep everyone's line muted until it is your turn to speak. If you mute your own line, the moderator may not hear your voice when he calls for comment. Second, I'd like to describe the way the hand-raising process will work. Unfortunately, our conference technology does not allow us to identify individual callers by name, so when the public comment portion of the meeting begins, the moderator will randomly unmute one call-in line and ask everyone to say their names at the same time. The voice that we hear will belong to the person whose line is unmuted. We will then ask that person to restate their name and provide their street address. We'll repeat this process until each phone line has been unmuted. It's very important that you say your name each time the moderator requests, because if the moderator unmutes a phone line and does not hear your name after the prompt, that phone line will be removed from the conference. If you have called in and are also streaming the meeting on YouTube or watching on television, please silence your other device when you speak. Otherwise, there'll be an echo because of the slight delay in the TV and streaming broadcasts. Third, I ask that all speakers keep their comments brief and germane to the application. Obscene, offensive, and threatening language will not be tolerated. Anyone violating this rule will be given a warning, and if the conduct continues, I will ask the moderator to mute that person's phone line for the remainder of the evening. If the violation is egregious, that person will be muted immediately. Fourth, the public was provided opportunity to submit written comment via mail and email. Those comments have been published on the town's website as a .pdf file and are embedded in the online agenda. For the record, the zoning enforcement officer will now read the names of any of those who have submitted written comments.
There have been no submitted written comments for this application.
Thank you. Members of the public are welcome to continue sending written comments to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov, and those comments will be distributed to the members of the board and also read into the record. Finally, I'd like to outline for all attendees the rules of engagement and how the board operates this public hearing. Those presenting or commenting should state their name and address for the record. Please spell your name. Board members may ask questions during the testimony of the applicant. All questions and comments will be directed through the chair and only after recognition by the chair, including follow-ups. If feasible, the chair will have the members hold their questions until the end of the applicant's presentation or the end of a logical break in the applicant's presentation. Following the testimony of the applicant, the public will have a chance to comment on the current application in the manner described above. Upon conclusion of the public's comments, the applicant will have an opportunity to address the opinions expressed, and on conclusion of the applicant's rebuttal, and if there are no further questions from the board, the public hearing will be closed. It is the practice of the board to render a decision on the application on the same evening, following all items on the public meeting agenda. Again, I'd like to conclude by thanking everyone in advance for your patience. This is only our third virtual public hearing, and we're still learning from the experience. There are bound to be some bumps and glitches along the way, but we remain committed to the principles of open and transparent government. With that, will the applicant for petition 12-20 please begin with their presentation?
Hi, my name is Maria Martone, Martone. I live at 12 Shepherd Road, West Hartford. I like to continue to work part-time at dressmaker. I'm a dressmaker. I work from home. And I just like to renew my permit. So if it's possible, any questions?
So, Ms. Martone, you've been at this location before. Are there any changes to your proposed hours or any other changes to your the conduct of your business?
Yes, it's going to be part-time. I like to retire in a couple of years. And right now it's very slow because of the pandemic. You know, there is no work, but I like to continue to work if I could when the things get better.
Okay. So just a couple of days a week, by appointment only, from 8 to 6.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Does any members of the commission have questions for Ms. Martone? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Moderator, are there any call-in users who would like to speak either in favor or in opposition to this application?
Mr. Chairman, I see no new Callin users.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Martone, with no further questions from the board, we thank you for your application. You're welcome to stay for the deliberations of the board this evening. We will render a decision tonight, or you can wait to be notified by mail of our decision.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, this concludes the public hearing portion of the meeting. And now let us proceed to deliberations. So, Mr. Public, for the first application, we have 20-10. Can you remind us who will be voting for this particular application? The reason I ask is because I believe, Mr. D'Amato, I believe when we were doing initial roll call, you may not have been right there at roll call. So I don't know if that's going to change our.
Mr. D'Amato, did you hear the entirety of the first application?
Yeah, I came back just as you were finishing the procedures.
Okay.
All right, great.
And then I knew I saw you there, but you weren't able to chime in on the roll call, unfortunately.
Yeah, my computer doesn't like the security for WebEx, and so it took me a while to get around it.
Okay. All right. So at any rate, yes, you will be voting on the first application, and then we're going to have Commissioner Harris vote on this one, in addition to Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Neville. Commissioner Morales, just for the record, you will vote on petition number 11-20, and then we'll go back to Commissioner Harris for number 12. And then I'll have Commissioner Morales vote on the adjournment once we get there.
Okay. And Mr. Public, before we begin, I just had a question about something that was in the agenda, which said that this was a request for a variance under 177-20 cap E, which I believe has to do with outbuildings, and I'm not sure that that's the proper.
It should have been 177-20. And it's obstructions in yards. Let me just double check that subsection.
When I looked it up in the regs, it looked correct to me.
Okay, could be my mistake.
Let's see what we got here. Yeah, it is E because it's technically an encroachment into the rear yard setback.
Okay, all right. So, and I was thinking E is only for accessory buildings, but that's for all rear yard setbacks.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, all right. This is an interesting one because I was thinking that as long as you don't expand the footprint, you don't have a problem with the variance, but you are expanding the existing nonconformity, and that makes sense. I mean, you're expanding access to light and air and all those things. So it makes sense that this petition comes before us. But then we get to the point, well, the hardship is simply that the homeowners are doing a remodel and they want more space. And I find that unconvincing for a hardship. But, you know, if others feel differently about it, I'm willing to entertain those those thoughts.
This is Don Neville.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Neville, before we jump into deliberations here, if we could just have a motion and a second on the application, and then we could proceed.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Motion to approve 1020.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Neville, with your comments.
So I appreciate that I'm usually the one that's a little bit more of a pain in the neck on these, but this seems like one of those ones in which, but for a change in the regs at some point, they would be able to do what they're doing. And I appreciate that it's a legal I appreciate that it's non-conforming. I get it. But it was non-conforming because the regs changed, presumably at some point in time. We don't know that, but there's been nothing to indicate otherwise. So I tend to lean on this one as opposed to somebody that's trying to expand the footprint. I tend to side with the idea that this would be an acceptable variance. But I'm open to being convinced otherwise as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Harris.
I actually agree with both of you. How do you like that for splitting the apple? I don't see any hardship here, and if we hold that as the standard, strictly speaking, I'm hard pressed to see where there is a hardship. On the other hand, I don't see any real reason why this shouldn't go. Nobody objects. It doesn't seem to be a problem. So, Brian, can you give any guidance if we approve this? Are we somehow setting a precedent or doing anything that in the future is going to come back and be a problem?
I would say not likely. It's a vertical expansion. It's not a horizontal expansion. So it's, they're not occupying any additional land area with it. It doesn't appear to be close to any property lines per se. It's a rear yard setback, and rear yard setbacks are substantially larger than side setbacks. So, with that being the case, it's already quite far from the rear property line. I would say that this would not, create any kind of negative precedent for applications moving forward.
What about the situation? I have a shed that when we bought the house, it was closer to the house than it should have been. But I can't change that shed. I couldn't make it bigger. But by the reasoning of what we're going through here, in theory, at least I could build that shed higher, and that would seem to be a problem.
Well, it would still require a variance to do that, and for the same reason that this application requires a variance, because it is a vertical expansion of an existing legal non-conforming structure.
Okay, that's a good answer.
But does that get us to the same place, though, Brian? I mean, it requires a variance. They'd have to come before the board, and we would be faced with this precedent. Well, it's only a vertical expansion, so is that really something we should be overly concerned about?
That's I can't speak to that in particular, and it really, I think, comes down to your own personal opinions as commissioners as to whether or not that's precedent setting. I'm not going to I don't want to interject my own opinion here. It's not my role to do so. But that's what it is. It's a vertical expansion.
Thank you for that, Brian. Okay. Mr. D'Amato?
Yeah, a couple of things. I'm not worried about our potential setting of a precedent, but I have a couple of questions. Brian, can you touch on, I can't see the plans well enough to see if they've got it on the plan as far as coverage and maximum lot coverage. If they were to have tried to do this another way, would they run into coverage issues with impervious surfaces? And also, is it possible that when this was built, this was treated as a side yard, given that it's a corner lot, and that's how it got there, and something's changed? So a standard that they originally laid the house out, the house out with, has now been flipped.
So taking your second point first. Yeah, that's entirely possible that it was treated as a side yard at one point under the previous zoning designation. To your other point, it's a pretty large lot. I don't believe that they would be running into any coverage limitations. I think from a architectural design standpoint, it would probably be challenging to accomplish their goal on a first floor, you know, when the living area is on the second floor. So from a practical standpoint, that would probably be unrealistic.
Any other comments from commissioners? No. Okay. Yeah, I guess, John, I'm kind of it's like one of those cube diagrams where you see it one way and then see it another way. And I flip back and forth because again, we're not expanding the footprint. They're doing a rehab anyway.
I don't know that it matters about the rehab. I mean, if it helps at all, what this seems to be a little bit more like are the multifamilies over near Jimmy's Pizza. And because of the regs that got enacted, if they want to do anything to those buildings, they invariably have to come and get a variance. Because the only place they're allowed to build is like a 3-foot swath that runs down the center of the entire thing. And we have historically recognized the inherent limitation on those kinds of things. And that feels a little bit like this one. So I'm a little less concerned about the idea of precedent, although I'm very sensitive to it. So, thanks.
Okay. Commissioners, are we ready to vote? Okay. Given that we're ready to vote, we have a motion, right? Where the motion's on.
Yep. So I'll just do a roll call vote. To start with Commissioner D'Amato.
Yes.
Commissioner Doyle. Commissioner Harris.
One more time, Commissioner.
Harris says yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
And Commissioner Neville. Commissioner Neville, one more time for me. You unmuted at the wrong, or you muted at the wrong time. Try again.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, that's 5 yeses, which means that's a unanimous approval.
Okay, that one passes.
Very good.
Okay, can I get a motion for approval of 11-20, please?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Johnson, second? I'll second that one, Brian. What the heck?
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, looking at those pictures of the Shield Road, north and south, it's pretty stark. You'd never know there's a 10-acre shopping plaza there. And I myself have gotten caught, like, is this the turn? Is this the turn? So we have a 700-something feet of frontage with no sign. And I understand why the signs on New Britain Ave is you get more traffic. I get it. But I think this sign is, I think this sign is in order. Nothing offensive about it. I think it's well designed. They have an apron to accommodate it. I kind of like the sign.
I agree. I think it's pretty customary for properties that have multiple frontages to be allowed signs on both. And I know there's a number of commercial sites in town that have it. So I'm actually surprised. Brian, is this a zone specific prohibition or is this across the board?
it's across the board, and it's one of those things that, I just make a general statement about our sign regs. They've been around for a long time, and they probably are. It's probably worth going in there and making some changes on a lot of different aspects of it. But I just don't think it's been a priority of the council at this point. I mean, we get a halfway decent number of these variances. Typically, they're for churches and schools that are bigger campuses that have a lot of entrances and things like that. We typically don't get them for commercial plazas. Maybe this particular plaza is unique, and well, I think that lends to the hardship. But it's a pretty big commercial plaza, and so. Yeah, it's a blanket prohibition on multiple freestanding signs.
Yeah, if you recall, Mike, we had to do it for Elizabeth Park. We've done, I think, KO. We had to do it for, and then we don't grant them all, right? I mean, there was the Pumpkin Church. They wanted a big sign coming off the highway, and I was kind of glad that we had the opportunity to weigh in on that, because I think we ended up declining that petition. But
yeah,
in my opinion, any traffic that comes down Shield that can make its way into this property without having to go out onto New Britain Avenue simply because they're not aware it's the same site, it's just less traffic on New Britain. So I'm comfortable.
Yeah, I am too. I'm favorably disposed to this application. Okay, any further discussion? Okay. Mr. Public, would you please take a roll call vote?
I certainly can. Commissioner D'Amato?
Yes.
Commissioner Doyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Morales?
Yes.
Commissioner Neville?
Yes.
Thank you. That's 5 yeses and unanimous approval.
All right, thank you. And may I get a motion on the final application of the night, 12-20?
Make a motion to approve. Oh, go for it, John.
Move that it be approved.
I'll second.
Thank you both. I'm favorably disposed. What can I say?
I don't have any issues with this.
No, and it seems like it's a step down from what was there before. So I don't think there's any. We did not during the public hearing, Brian, but I'll ask now. Are there any letters in the file? Any complaints?
There's no letters to the file. No emails.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Sensing we're ready to vote, Mr. Public, would you please do a roll call vote?
Commissioner D'Amato?
Yes.
Commissioner Doyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
And Commissioner Neville?
Yes.
Thank you. That one is also 5 yes votes, which means that's a unanimous approval as well.
Okay, one last item of business, I believe, are the July minutes that Ms. Birmingham sent out before the meeting. May I get a motion to approve the minutes for July?
So moved.
Let me just jump in and just mention the folks that were present at the July meeting. So that will be Commissioner D'Amato, Commissioner Doyle, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Neville. And so the motion was made by one of those 4?
Commissioner D'Amato, and Doyle will second.
Thank you.
If any of you who are voting haven't had a chance to look at take a look at the minutes and would like to review them now. Okay. Are we ready to proceed? Okay. Mr. Public, would you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner D'Amato?
Yes.
Commissioner Doyle?
Approved, yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Neville.
Yes.
Thank you. That approves the minutes.
Okay. One last item, Ms. Morales, maybe you can help us out. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Thank you. Second from Commissioner Johnson. All right, all those.
Thank you.
We get a roll call vote, Mr. Ludwig.
Commissioner D'Amato,
Yes.
Commissioner Doyle.
Yes.
Let's see, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Neville,
Yes.
and Commissioner Morales. I went out over this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your patience tonight. Appreciate your dialing in. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Brittany.
Well done, Todd. Well done.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Todd.
Everybody, thank you very much.